Good morning or good evening. Welcome to the Cocktail Crew, where it's me, as usual, Hazel McCourt, always with my best friend, Sam. Sam, tell us all about yourself quickly.
Sam and Nicole text said the wrong thing. And this is the cocktail crew. I never called myself the cocktail coach, so Hazel.
Okay, well, I'm doing a session and I'm so excited because we've got Dr. Raymond Hamden back again. And he's doing a session on Voices for Peace, where psychology meets global diplomacy. And I have to read my notes sometimes, Dr. Hamdan, because you've got too intense a subject for me that I can't remember it all. Um, so if you don't mind me doing that, so I'm exploring with you the intersection of science, psychology, and human connection through quantum collaboration of peace. So you are going to have to take this session over from me and Sam, because you know
Well,
more
thank you
about it
very
than
much
we
for
do.
trusting me with that. I've enjoyed working with you before, and this is quite nice. And I'm glad that we're going to be doing a series on this that might be for about 5 to 8 different series. And it'll be interesting to hear what your audience has to say about the topic with all the things that are going on in the world today.
Yeah,
The things that we,
absolutely.
we grew up to believe as peace doesn't seem to be happening very often. And is it because the media is just picking up on all the bad news and media has become so sophisticated that that's what we hear about more than before? Or is it actually that there's more problems? Is a world change taking place? In either case, we're seeing a lot of world markings of uncertainty, polarization, increased tribalism, which is a term that we haven't heard in a long time, but that's what it looks like it's being. So peace may be seen as an elusive situation, but it actually isn't. So when we look at it through the lens of political psychology, we try to understand not only why nations within each other have conflicts, but why nations between each other have conflicts. But what's more important is now what are we looking at is the merge into reconciliation and what is involved to reconcile. Rather than getting into all the things that has to do with maybe what is the root cause of all these problems, I will just say that even as a psychologist, I've learned it's not psychology that's the root problem. It may be the psychology of the individual who's running a nation, or it may be the psychology of an organization that is dominating and puppeteering those who we think are in control.
Dr. Hamdan, I cannot imagine who you could be possibly referring to at the
Uh,
moment.
I'm just making it up.
All right.
So,
We won't say anything then about Putin or his or
so
your
the thing
president.
is, because there's a lot of uncertainties, and what we're seeing is that if you look back on war from many years ago, hundreds of years ago, it didn't have anything to do with principle. When you really analyze it, it had to do with economics and who's
It's
going to
all
have the
about the
most
money.
land to control more. That's really where it was. And I remember a rabbi who spoke in a Washington, D.C. think tank that I used to be invited to attend, once said that the problem with Cain and Abel was not sibling rivalry. It was who's going to own the land, who's going to take the land and the ownership of it.
Yeah.
So we've had this kind of issue for millennia, and we're not even sure how many millennia that is. But when we look at conflict, we're now looking more at quantum collaboration. And that's a term that I like to use when in the year 2019, I was invited by a couple of universities in England to actually do a program on working with some of their forensic people. And I thought, okay, well, this is great. They want me to do my forensic psychology work on profiling terrorists. They said, no, we don't want you to do that at all. We're having problems with people working together effectively. So we need you to come in and do a team building kind of a thing. So, Raymond Hamden doesn't do team building. That's old stuff. I'm a young guy. I'm going to come up with the young stuff now. So I came up with a concept called quantum collaboration. Now, this is not a term that you can actually go and copyright, because those two words you can't copyright. It's like saying, I'm going to copyright the word psychology. You can't do that. But the concept of quantum collaboration is a process that I developed that brings people together from the unspoken psychology.
I think
Not
you
just,
phrased it as people helping people. That was the most useful phrase I got out of it when I read
yes.
that.
So it's
Yeah.
like a
Yes, it-
mediation, but mediating to groups of people, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. And this is where, when you bring the human element back into it, things work out a lot differently. So I developed an exercise where I had people doing things that would show how they would do things if they were by themselves, how they would do things if they had one other person, and then how they would do things if they had a group of people together.
Sorry.
And we began to realize it wasn't just the ideas that were coming together, it was actually the interchange that humans were having with each other. And even in the morning when you go to work, or even in the evenings when you're going home, even at work, even at lunch, if you look at somebody and smile and say, hi, that's all you have to do. That immediately puts a connection. That smile can make a big difference. What's also noted, and I don't recommend this depending on where you live, but sometimes if you reach over and with your fingertips just gently touch somebody on their forearm, even whether you know them well or not, you're going to get a lot more cooperation from them. And it's an unconscious gesture. It's an unconscious gesture that means connectedness. And people connect. People want to connect. They don't have to know the person to want to connect with them. Connection doesn't have to mean romance. And in our session today, I'll describe how that actually develops. So with quantum collaboration, we take what's not seen to realize that it actually has an effect. It's like a catalyst. If you remember in chemistry class, you would have a catalyst that would bring two chemicals together. But that catalyst was never part of the formula. It was it was a chemical that brought two other chemicals together without being part of the formula. So this is what quantum collaboration does. We're learning how people connect with each other. We're also learning more in neuropsychology about there are things that we thought had to go through the brain, thinking that everything had to go through the brain, that we're really realizing now there's no part of the brain that functions when it comes to spirituality. So there's a conceptual scenario that we as humans are aware of that actually is beyond the brain, where we used to think, well, it must be somewhere in the brain that all of this is happening. So what we're realizing now is the spiritual connection of people is paramount. And one of the things I don't mind saying out loud, when I help people, even as a psychologist, when I help people put God back into their family or their lives, things went a lot better. And I wasn't preaching religion. I was talking about spiritual connections, something beyond just being physically human. So when we see how people in conflict, whether it's a couple at home, whether it's family members, whether it's people in the neighborhood, the community, the state, the nation, or nations among each other, and believe it or not, one day we're going to be starting to see interplanetary relations. Just us being here with all of this, boy, God wasted a lot of space. So it's not just us on planet. We're going to be seeing these kinds of interactions going on. So the psychological fabric of peace is not just stitching treaties together. It actually develops trust, empathy, and shared purpose. So these kind of things are going beyond what we're taught when we're going to school, what we're taught by our families and communities. But the very, very first thing that we're taught the moment that we're born is that you will have someone hold you to keep you warm and protect you from falling. And at the same moment, you're fed. Either mother's breast or dad is holding a bottle. Now, what you'll see at that moment also is the child will automatically have eye contact. And that eye contact then is connected between the child, the breast, and mom, or the child, the bottle, and dad. So what that says to us in quantum understanding is that the first thing we learn is that love and feeding go hand in hand. So when you care for somebody, what do? You cook for them. You take them out for dinner. And what's more delicious than mom or dad's cooking for their family? You can go to a restaurant and get the same exact meal. It won't taste nearly as well. And you say, well, it's just a hamburger. It's just French fries. It's just a salad. It's just hummus. It could be anything. But the fact that when a person cooks with love, the ions in the atmosphere change. The vibrations change. And we learned this from years ago, that the most energy is emitted from the hands. So when loving hands are preparing food for people that they love, it changes the ions around the food, which means that the food's going to taste better. And it's amazing. I'm sure you know that if you're familiar with Arabic food, and especially the Lebanese have this thing called maza. Yeah. And maza is a group of different appetizers that's brought to the table. Now, anybody at home can slice up a cucumber, can slice up onions, can put leban, which is yogurt, or lebni, which is the soured yogurt, with the khibz, which is the bread.
It's beautiful. I love it.
But when mom does that, or dad does that, it's amazing how it tastes different than when the best chef in town prepares the same thing. It doesn't mean that the food is not good at the restaurant, but boy, doesn't it taste better when loving hands prepare it. It's absolutely amazing to have this. So when we're looking at peace building, we actually do this. And one of the things we were doing when I was very much involved in the psychology of terrorists, when I was involved in the psychology of terrorists and hostage situations, we would never advise that the negotiators give a cheese sandwich to the terrorist to give to the hostages. Really? We would give them uncut bread, uncut cheese blocks that they would have to slice for the hostages. So by having that act of doing for another human being makes harming them less likely.
But would they actually do it?
And it worked. It really worked.
Wow.
Because there's many, in my book on the psychology of terrorism, I'm talking about 4 different types of terrorists. One of them actually is retributional. That's a term that I coined to describe people that don't have any psychological disturbances. They don't adhere to any particular religious or political group, but they've been harmed and they want to go after the enemy. They have no interest in harming the hostages. Hostages are just instrumental victims so that they can negotiate. That's it. You don't see the hostages getting harmed when it's a retributional terrorist. You see that more with the fundamentalists, who are with ethno-geographic religious, ethno-geographic principles, because they actually think that everybody who's harmed is going to go to heaven. Really? Where does it say that in any holy book?
I know.
It doesn't.
There's a lot of promises as well.
And even those who we call psychopaths, who are there because they have some psychological issues, and they just doing it to make money and get recognition. The only way to actually negotiate with them is show them where they're going to get hurt, because they don't care if the hostages get hurt. When you show them how they're going to get hurt, they kind of back away. So these are the kind of elements that we learn in political psychology and forensic psychology about how to deal with people. Now, taking that element, which are the negative things, but making it a peaceful situation. When we can help people see a common denominator, that's peacekeeping. Everyone has a common denominator. And that common denominator is people want to survive. They want to thrive. But then that branches out. They want their families to thrive and survive. Then their neighbors, their communities, their cities, their states, their nations. And then even goes beyond that. Unfortunately, what we've had in the past is you have to have a common enemy. Well, now we're saying, well, even if you have a common enemy and that common enemy goes away, you got problems again. So how can we help people understand what is the common denominator that all the players will have that will keep them healthy and happy and also want to share that? So when we do work with people in groups, we'll have them do things for each other. And the reason that works is that the psychology has a fabric of peace. And this is not treaties, like I mentioned before, but it's trust, empathy, and shared purpose. So let's look at the relationship model. There's two parts to a relationship. There is a sense of belonging, and then there's the commitment. Now, both are important, but let's go to the sense of belonging first. The foundation is trust and respect. Trust and respect is learned. There's no such thing as love at first sight. It's impossible because you have to have the psychological processes to get there. Now, researchers will say, oh no, there is trust, there is love at first sight because we can see chemical changes. That's chemical changes in the body. It's not the human understanding of what they may be feeling or sensing. For that to happen, that takes time. So trust and respect does not happen at first sight. You have to build on it. You have to deal with it carefully. You have to experiment with it. So what I tell young kids when I'm working with young people who are high school kids and college age, I'll tell them, okay, girls, if a guy says, trust me, I'll respect you in the morning, don't believe it. That's not going to happen. So we teach people that trust and respect can come in different flavors. But in these situations, in these situations, what we want is for people to be able to understand that there's a whole process that takes place and it's ever going. So what that means is when you develop enough trust and respect with a person after having an interest in them, then you'll be willing to be vulnerable with each other, which means, okay, I'm going to tell you a little secret. And if you keep it, I'll tell you a bigger secret. And if you keep that and you don't use it against me, then I'll tell you even a bigger secret. Well, after several months of that, you start becoming very, very close friends.
Yeah.
Well, the friendship and the intimacy, if it's romantic, will be physical intimacy as well. But it doesn't have to be romantic. It can be any kind of friendship. It can be recreational relationship. It can be a spiritual relationship. It can be work relationship. But that intimacy is that sense of belonging with the friendship. So that intimacy, social or physical, if it's also romantic, and the friendship that you develop is what we call love. But we don't use the word love because people assume it to mean some kind of a physical relationship.
Yeah, I got you.
Of intimacy.
Yeah.
And it isn't.
Yeah.
What it means is a sense of belonging.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing is the foundation is trust and respect that also bleeds over into commitment. But the commitment, believe it or not, is what actually is the predictor of sustainability in the relationship. That sustainability is commitment. The commitment has three parts. Everybody has a mission statement. What do you want to achieve in life? What's your purpose? Everybody is unique. 8 billion people on this planet. So everybody's different. Even identical twins have differences.
Yeah.
And then the third thing is the boundaries. Well, when you have a couple, either people who are working together, recreating together in sports or hobbies, or in a romantic relationship, we need to always remember that it's not a matter of right or wrong, good or bad. It's a matter of preference. Are you willing to respect and trust your partner's mission statement and help them develop that. Be a support system, as they will mutually do for you. So that's what makes the relationship on the mission statement workable. But you have to know yourself first before you know that you can trust another person.
Yeah.
Also, uniqueness. Can you help that person realize their uniqueness and that they are special as everybody on this planet is? And they will do the same for you. And boundaries. Everybody has boundaries. There's people have, somebody will say, oh, we have a quirk. That's really senseless. But it isn't senseless to that person. For that person, can you respect that they have boundaries on something that you don't think is worthwhile to think about, but you do think about it because that's what your partner wants, whether it's a romantic partner, a recreational partner, like sports and hobbies, or whether it's a partner at work. So these are the important things that you need to understand to help develop that relationship. Well, this is what quantum collaboration is helping work through knowing yourself first. So know thyself to know the other. Then when you do that, you're better able to understand if that other person is a good match for you. It's not up to them whether they are a good match. It's up to you whether they are a good match, because they're doing the same thing.
Dr. Hamden, sorry to interrupt, but does this apply to the larger world? If you're saying know thyself to know the other, does this apply in situations that are possibly going on today in the world?
Well,
possibly between countries?
Unfortunately, there's a lot of factors, what's happening in the world today, that has nothing to do with love or sense of belonging. It has to do with narcissistic,
Greed,
selfishness, egocentric. It has to do with economic building. Because if you notice what people do in war, what leaders do in the war, they want to grab as much land as possible.
Yeah.
So the more land you have, the more people you have. The more people you have, eventually within a generation or two, they start seeing things politically the way you want. They don't care about the economics because they think in principles, where the person who's actually leading this may only have economics as a stronghold. Because the economics isn't just money, it's property. It's world possession of things that are tangible, which actually is meaningless. Because the interesting thing is that everybody dies. When you die, are you going to take any of that wealth with you?
Exactly. Yeah.
You don't.
Yeah.
So what's the purpose? Is that some people don't believe in God because they think they are God. So if you can't address this to them for change in them, which is very unlikely, because people that come from that kind of personality background aren't the ones who go seek psychological assistance to become better people, because they don't need it. They're already the best. Just ask them.
I'll phone him right now. I've got him on speed dial. All right, Trump?
Well, there's a lot of leaders in that same situation that we're seeing. It's not just happening in a couple of countries.
I know that, yeah.
We're seeing it all over, and this is what's more frightening. I don't get into conspiracy theory until it becomes an actual conspiracy. But you start wondering, are these people really managing the situation for it to be so global? Or is there a bigger machine that's actually doing this that we don't even know who it might be?
That's actually a really good point. That's really interesting. Oh, big machine. Just put that down. That's really interesting. I need to look that up.
Yeah, so here today we've started talking about the quantum collaboration of peace. And we're doing this from a political psychology perspective. So today we focus more on just setting the stage.
Yep.
What we'd like to do in the next session, we'll talk more about dysfunctionality of nations and what causes dysfunctionality, and how we can help people within a nation or within a group or within a family become functional. So from dysfunction to function.
Oh, that'd be brilliant. I'm looking forward to that. So, Dr. Hamden, amazed again to have you on here. I thank you so much. And I'll catch up with you soon to discuss this one before we go on.
It'll be a pleasure to see you again. Thank you so much. Lovely to see you.
You too. Care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.